We have a Philadelphia Eagles preseason football game today to talk about. Eagles football is back. Offensive players to watch in tonight's matchup with the Ravens. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this game day edition of Locked On Eagles. We're back. We made it, and we're brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Gino Camilleri is back in the saddle. Eagles, Ravens tonight. Got offensive players to talk about today, Gino. I can't wait. I mean, it feels like nobody realizes the Eagles are playing a preseason game with the Hurts-Sirianni nonsense that's back up and running, but I'm so excited to watch Eagles football. I mean, it's finally the camp, following along, camp tweets are great, but it's good to see it with our own eyes.
It's going to be good to see them going against a team with a different color jersey on, as
Totally
everybody says every single time they go against somebody new in their first preseason outing. But it's going to be good. I mean, we've been itching to see this team go out there. And it is reported.
I've been dying to see this football team.
We might get the starters for a drive tonight. John Clark of NBC Sports said that the starters should play at least a drive tonight. Mm-hmm. That's good to see. We'll see how Kellen Moore's offense very vanilla-ish offense looks right off the bat, how Jalen Hurts looks, how this offensive line looks. But we're going to see a lot of these camp battles come to fruition tonight. And with 3 preseason games, a lot of those decisions could potentially be made today, and especially on the offensive side of the ball, Lou. You talk about some of those depth battles, quarterback, offensive line, wide receiver, tight end. There's jobs to be won in this game tonight.
Oh, for sure. The depth battles on offense are really interesting. And I think you mentioned the starters playing. I think that's more important for the defense, as it's a much different unit than it was last year. There's a lot of new pieces, a lot of young guys trying to take that next step. There's a lot of evaluating going on that side of the football. But for the offense as well, it will be interesting to see how vanilla Kellen Moore's unit is tonight. But I think they will try a couple things. You might see a couple little glimpses of Jalen Hurts under center, maybe just like a classic play action rollout. Maybe there is some more pre-snap motion. So although they're not going to show their whole hand and, tell the league what they're going to do this year, I think they're going to show a little something that makes you think, oh yeah, this offense really is going to be different this year. So I'm really looking forward to that part of tonight.
And I'll be interested, even though it'll be very small amounts of snaps that we do see, how the offense does change after Jalen Hurts is removed from the quarterback position.
Sure.
Because one of the things that I think we have talked about over the last couple of years is them bringing in backup quarterbacks that tend to mirror what Jalen Hurts does. Some better than others. Marcus Mariota, a better mirror than a guy like Gardner Minshew. Well, in tonight's game, you got Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. How much is this offense going to change? And over the last week or so, Lou, you've been speaking this into fruition. Tanner McKee could potentially put himself in QB2 consideration tonight.
He's a better player than Kenny Pickett, in my opinion. And I think he's going to show that tonight.
From beginning, man. Yeah.
I think that's maybe the number one guy on offense I'm looking forward to watching tonight the most is Tanner McKee. And maybe he gets the Eagles thinking, do we trade Pickett? Is McKee the backup if Jalen Hurts goes down? I know Pickett probably does keep the offense closer to what it would be with Jalen Hurts because of his mobility. Tanner McKee is not mobile, but I think Tanner McKee is the more aggressive player. I think he's the more accurate player. I think if you actually want to go for a ceiling for a backup, it's McKee. If it's a floor, then it's Pickett.
If you're talking about pushing the ball down the field too, McKee probably has a similar arm to Jalen Hurts than Kenny Pickett does.
He's got a whip. I mean, that was the main reason they drafted him from Stanford. The dude's 6'5", 6'6", with just a cannon. I mean, he's a statue, but yeah, he's aggressive.
And especially if you go into tonight and this Kellen Moore offense, which is based more horizontally than it is vertically, if you see a guy like McKee pushing the ball down the field and then Kenny is just like, hit the check down, let's go side to side.
Which I think you're going to
go side to side. Then some of our fears might actually come to fruition. But I think it's a very good opportunity, especially with the guys that are competing in the 2s and 3s at wide receiver. You're going to get some guys that are going to go out there and compete their rear ends off. I mean, who knows what that wide receiver 3 spot is right now. Talk about jobs being won. Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee, they got to deliver the ball to these wide receivers, because I say it all the time.
I was going to say
that quarterback cannot deliver it to the guys in the air. You can't evaluate anybody.
Even last year with Marcus Mariota, Gino, he was such a bad passer in the preseason that it was really hard to evaluate some of the roster. When Tanner McKee came in the game, that's when you really got a good look at the receivers. So that's a good point. I do think the preseason quarterback play this year will be the best we've seen in a while for the Eagles. It was bad for some time. I mean, you threw out there the likes of, Clayton Thorson and
oh my God.
I mean, it was bad. I think the Pickett and McKee, they're actually battling for something. Like, a lot of those quarterbacks had nothing to really play for. We knew most of them weren't even going to be kept on the roster, right? They were going to only keep 2 quarterbacks. This is a huge battle. And for Kenny Pickett, his career is kind of on the line, because if he ever wants to be a starter again, he better hold off Tanner McKee for a backup job.
Great point. If you're talking about a guy who goes from QB1, loses his job
First
after
round pick.
So I wouldn't say tumultuous reports, but some reports that really weren't in his favor to how he handled the whole Russell Wilson incoming move. But you're right, Lou. You talk about those fringe, like 32 to quarterback number 38 or 39 that are still hypothetically compete, like Gardner Minshew, for example.
If you want to be a Minshew that gets a chance to go to a Raiders team next year.
And look at what he did in Philly. You have to beat out number 3. You have to come in there and at least have a similar semblance to the offense from quarterback 1. But if it's such a drop-off, Lou, I think you have to get into that discussion where you're saying, is this guy better off not on this football team? And we keep Tanner McKee as that second quarterback. Like, if it's very bad.
Yeah.
I don't think quarterbacks they're not a dime a dozen in this league. Teams do need them. And this is like the worst case scenario for Kenny Pickett. But at the same time, he could go out there tonight and go, let's say, 8 for 9 and like average 6 yards a play. And he just shows good pace and good understanding of the offense. And I think you and I would be sitting back and saying, okay, if he does come in for a game or 2, which is the expectation for a backup quarterback in Philadelphia, we can make this work. But if it's so bad that Tanner McKee is clearly better than him, we're talking about one of the Howie Roseman trades that we're going to be saying, why did we do this from the get-go?
Especially when you knew you had the other guy in-house already that you drafted. You were hoping to develop into this piece. Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely going to be watching Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee tonight in Baltimore. And then, Gino, before we take a break, you did mention receiver 3. Like, that's another battle you're really going to want to keep a close eye on. Like, Johnny Wilson, the anticipation is driving me nuts. I really can't wait to see him tonight.
Especially at the X receiver position, because there was a lot of talk of him coming out of college being that weird Harold Carmichael-esque body profile where you're saying, is he better off putting on some weight, moving to tight end? But it seems that every time he lines up at that X receiver position where he does have a corner directly across from him in practice, he's been making plays, man. And they need somebody to push the pace at that position. Is it going to be Paris Campbell? Is it going to be Johnny Wilson? Those 2 individuals play very different from each other, but how are they going to be utilized tonight? And I think Johnny Wilson, dude, he might get 7-8 targets tonight, and they might be all 50-50 balls. And I would love to see how he is as that 50-50 catcher, to use him in the red zone areas where you can get good, efficient play out of him right off the bat.
I want to see that first drive too, Gino, because if Johnny Wilson's wide receiver 3 over Paris Campbell, is he playing on the outside? Is DeVonta Smith lined up on the inside?
Yeah, how do they bring those guys in rotation?
Yeah, so that'll be interesting too, to see like formation-wise where they line up.
And how is the connection with the backup quarterbacks as well? Because that's going to, I would say, help a guy like Johnny Wilson, help a guy like Anaya Smith, help a guy like Paris Campbell, where they're taking a majority of the reps with quarterback 2, with quarterback 3, and they do have that timing down, and they do have that understanding of where the ball is going to be. But I keep going back to, if there's just a clear divide between any of these guys, and we're saying like, hey, Johnny Wilson is just sitting over there, he's getting defended by a 6'1" wide receiver. Let's throw him, or 6'1" cornerback. Let's throw him the ball once, but just pump fake. We're just clutching the ball. We're getting sacked. We have to avoid all of that tonight. Get the ball out, operate the offense, allow these young guys to be evaluated, because this is the first time you're going to get to see them. It isn't years past where you have 4 preseason games. A majority of their play will come in that last preseason game, week 4. That's gone. It's a whole different world now. These guys have to produce right away to show the coaching staff that they could be trusted in a couple weeks from now to play with that top unit.
Well, Gino, even Britton Covey, I mean, he's been making more and more plays at receiver the last few weeks. He's going to get his shot tonight. It's a big opportunity for wide receiver 3s wide open. And if none of them look good, Howie Roseman's going to look around the league to see if he can bring another help. So there's a lot of pressure on those guys tonight for sure in Baltimore. We'll continue to get into offensive players to watch for the Eagles preseason opener tonight against the Ravens coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, for your second listen, go enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Get daily insight and the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Eagles, Ravens. Tonight, we finally have a real game to talk about. A lot of battles going on the offensive side of the football. Gino, backup quarterback, Kenny Pickett versus Tanner McKee. Wide receiver 3, Britton Covey versus Johnny Wilson versus Paris Campbell. I want to see if Ainias Smith can really make up some ground. I mean, he has not had a great summer so far. I want to see also another thing that's interesting. I want to see like what kick returners they use, like what duos they're going to pull. Will they use Ainias Smith? Will Shipley be put back there? Paris Campbell, the rotation that Mike Clay is going to choose as well. That's also something to keep an eye out for. Like, are they going to use a corner? Like, is Isaiah Rodgers? Isaiah Rodgers has been used as a returner before. I'm keeping an eye on that for sure.
You kind of sparked my brain a little bit here. It's going to be huge to see who are the first guys out in that special team.
Because you're going to have 2 out there all the time now.
And not just the returners, Lou. I'm talking about like the base guys on coverage, the base guys on the return team.
Because it's almost like a run play now. I mean,
yeah. Are they going to go heavier with like a defensive end type of body profile?
Like Jalen Hunt will probably be out there.
Yeah. Are they going to go lighter with a lot of these DBs that they have? And that could be a good, I would say, a good identifier of who might be the 4th or 5th guy in these rotations if they're the first guy up in the special teams unit. And that's a great point, man, because if Britton Covey goes out there, he gets the first run, he doesn't take anything else after that, but they're using him as a wide receiver. I think it's pretty clear what the move is going forward. It's going to be Britton. But I think you got to give all those guys a lot of play because you don't know who's your kick returner. I mean, Britton is a great punt returner, but can he return kicks? That's a completely different ball game now.
It's a completely different ball game.
You have that shorter area quickness that it's going to come into play more. I think that suits Britton Covey's game more than that straight downright speed. That I think
it's why like Shipley
the return game might have helped. Yeah, Shipley, a former lacrosse player. You talk about just beating one-on-one battles. Yeah. That's his bread and butter. And I would love to see Cooper DeJean out there, but I think you just continue to throw as many guys at the wall and see which one of them sticks. Because in the past, I would say since Kenyon Barner, Lou, you haven't had somebody that can return kicks for punts. Yeah, you found a couple of needles in the haystack, but kicks has been downright abysmal for you to the point where I was doing studies about how Mike Clay's unit was just behind the 8 ball every single time, taking the ball out, and they wouldn't get it to the 25. And they need somebody that can at least get them to the 25, past that now, because the opportunity for plays, it's higher than ever in that special teams game.
What else on offense are you watching tonight?
Can we get somebody that wants to win the backup tight end position? Can we get somebody that's going to
point.
show a semblance of blocking, somebody that can show an understanding of finding space against zone, somebody that can win those one-on-one matchups against a linebacker or a safety? Somebody has to win this battle, Lou. I mean, I thought it was going to be McCallan Castles. He ends up getting injured. He's reverted to the injured reserve now, which is another conversation about the Eagles not paying high-profile undrafted free agents anymore. That just doesn't work for them if they pay them more than $200,000. But is Albert O gonna is he gonna actually be a Philadelphia? I haven't seen him in an Eagles jersey. Like, are we sure this guy's an actual?
I don't know
Eagles
if he's
player?
real. He might be a made-up player.
This is
we
one
don't
of those
we don't even say his last
stories we learn
name.
about.
Like, he sounds like he's made up. Like,
Yeah,
who's this Albert O guy?
I think CJ Uzomah, I'll be intrigued because he is the veteran. Does he need to play a boatload of minutes in the preseason? And that might be a good indicator if he does get less run than those guys, that maybe he has the step ahead. But I think you put Grant Calcaterra out there, Lou, and you force feed him that ball tonight at times.
Throw him out there the whole game.
Yeah, and you see if he can handle that, because if they want to go 12, if they want to be versatile, you have to have somebody that you can rely on. And they don't have that guy right now. But tonight is the best opportunity that you're going to get, because if the starters do play, Lou, which we have heard that it should be for a drive, I don't want Dallas Goedert anywhere on this football field.
No, absolutely not.
Like,
I really don't want any of them out there. But
no, his injury history is one that I'm like, let's just get him to Sunday, get him to game time. We'll go from week 1. But in his place, who's going to step up, man? And I think we're kind of maybe a little, I wouldn't say jaded is probably the wrong word, but we were probably a little bit ungrateful for the tight ends that we had for a little bit, where we're like, we have Ertz and Goddard, and now we're saying, geez, I would take 25% of the play you were getting out of that second guy when they had both of them. And you have to have somebody step up, especially with the backup quarterbacks, because one of the old adages goes, for young QBs, what's their best friend? It's a tight end.
I totally agree. And I'm also super curious to see the only starting job that's available for right guard is Becton. It feels like since the Steen injury has taken over as the leader in the clubhouse for that right guard spot. I'm curious to see if he's going to get that. If the starters do play tonight, Gino, I think it's going to be Becton that's in at right guard. But again, it's still an open competition. Neither one has really run away with it. I think they want Becton to win the job, but neither one is dominated. So this game's going to be important for both.
Do you think they go like a full rotation between them throughout like the first half, maybe?
Probably. I think maybe Becton gets the first quarter, Steen gets the second.
Yeah, that would probably be a good way.
I think they'll probably both get a quarter. They'll probably both get a quarter. Yeah.
Here's another question for you.
I don't know, do they use either one at tackle at all during the game? Because they used Steen last year like everywhere. Do they also try to use either at tackle at some point tonight too?
Because Fred Johnson will be that first guy up to come in at tackle.
And whoever they use at tackle, Gino, might be the one that's in second right now in the right guard. Like if they don't want to put Becton at tackle, that might tell me that he's in, like if Steen's playing both tonight, that might tell me they're getting ready for him to be the swing guy, not Becton.
Good point, Lou. Good point. I got another one for who's the second center? Who's going to be the second guy taking snaps for
That's
them?
A good point.
Because you just signed
he's
Nick,
the guy, but
is it going to be Nick Gates, who you just signed, who has a lot of starts for you?
I'm excited to watch Dylan McMahon.
Dylan McMahon in his first time out there, a young athletic center that I think Stoughton is going to trust to do a lot of those things for you. Trevor Keegan, Lou, like I think he is going to be one of those guys we might fall in love with as like one of those backup offensive. You're talking about a kid
guys
who's coming from Michigan, played on a Joe Moore offensive line, and he's going to be going up against second and third string type players when he was going against top level players. And
I would not be surprised if there's a Brian Baldinger little film breakdown of Keegan like on Monday morning.
Oh, I'm pumped for the second and third offensive line because you're talking about Max Sharping and some veteran guys that are going. The excuses for the quarterbacks are going to be very limited with the amount of veterans that they have on the offensive line, with the amount of guys they have in that second and third rotation, which there should be no excuses. I think they should be able to hang with whatever defensive line they're going against, even if it is Baltimore, who is pretty deep. But you're right, man. Like, how is this rotation going to play out? It's going to be very evident who they think those swing guys are based on the snaps tonight. I think you make a great point. Like, if Tyler Steen, he's playing guard and tackle, well, I don't know if you're a starter, my friend. Like, if Mekhi Becton is in there the whole time,
that's what
they might have just played their hand.
We'll find out tonight for sure. That's the big one to watch on offense for the first team is the right guard, but there is an entire battle in the depth of the interior offensive line to watch.
I think we got to mention running back just because it's the one position we didn't mention. I think Kendall Milton and Will Shipley are going to get a ton of play tonight.
Shipley's got to pass protect better. Like, I guess that's been a huge problem in camp. And if he wants to be someone that takes over the Gainwell spot and he plays some third downs, you got to be able to pass block.
And tonight, more than ever, man, keep your quarterback upright, and we'll see if these young running backs can do it. But hey, there's a job to be had at a lot of these second, third, and fourth positions that we could figure it out pretty quickly, man. Because once you put the pads on against another team, it's pretty evident if guys can play football or not.
All right, coming up next is Fan Friday right here on Locked On Eagles. We're going to hear from one of our listeners, and they brought up the Jakori Sheppard Award, so we'll get into that coming up next.
As we roll along, this episode of LOE is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Today's episode of Locked On Eagles is also brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Look, when your schedule is packed, you've got kids' activities, big work projects, football season's coming up, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's oftentimes really hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit with that therapist, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today. You're going to get 10% off your first month of online therapy. Once again, that's BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. All right, we're wrapping up this final podcast on Locked On Eagles that we have before an actual game is being taken place. Tonight, Eagles-Ravens. And Gino, of course, it's Fan Friday. And one of our main listeners, Sam, actually tweeted in. He wants to know about the Jacorey Sheppard Award. Like, who are the top candidates? Who should we be watching for the preseason?
So for those of you who might have not listened to Locked On Eagles over the past seasons,
they might not know who Jacorey Sheppard. Oh, the real sickos know who Jacorey Sheppard is, but let's not assume everyone knows our old Kansas corner.
Back when Chip Kelly was the general manager / coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, he was I believe it was either him or Randall Evans, who was out of Kansas State, but they drafted two kids out of Kansas that were both defensive backs. One was Jacorey Sheppard, who was the camp darling all until Darren Sproles put him in a blender and ended up tearing his ACL in, I think it was a non-contact injury, but he was our camp darling, and we fell in love with the idea of voting on guys that are the camp darling that might not get the love going into the regular season. So we came up with the Jacorey Sheppard Award. I could think back to guys like Quez Watkins before they got into this team, like that people were loving him. And
I think Eli Ricks last year was kind of that guy.
Eli Ricks, I believe, maybe won the award for us last year.
I think he did, yeah.
And I think back to Raheem Mostert years ago. I loved him, man. And who is it this time? Rasheed Bailey, actually. I think he just got cut from Toronto, who he'd been playing with forever, which is funny enough. So if I'm going to say who is my Jacorey Sheppard Award winner right now, I think I'm going to put it in my CGS basket. Sean Stevens. Sean Stevens has been getting a lot of play at camp. Reporters have been saying he's been all around the football. Is he going to make the 53? I don't know about that. Is he going to be a practice squatter? We'll see. But somebody that could potentially earn their way into a 16-man practice squad spot, I'm thinking a guy like Sean Stevens. I'm thinking like your Kendall Milton's of the world, like your fourth
Milton
running
might
back.
be my choice.
He could go for like 120 each game, and we're just
Yeah.
saying, yeah, he might deserve a spot on this team.
I think he could be your Trey Sermon this year, where
Yes,
you're like, they're not going to keep 4 running backs probably, but damn it, I don't want to lose this guy. I think it could be Kendall Milton.
What about a newly signed Shaq Quarterman, for example? I know he's not as young of a player, but we haven't seen him in practices. What if he comes out there tonight in those linebacker minutes and everybody's like, oh, this guy actually has like an LJ Fort little bit to his game, which if you go back 5 years, that's the type of player that was in consideration for that award as well. And this is back end of the roster guys that we just fall in love with, that outside of Philadelphia, you might have no idea who these people are. But to us, they're going to live in Eagles lore forever, man. Paul Turner, if he walks into anywhere in Philadelphia with, hi, I'm Paul Turner, I bet he gets a lot of love.
Or the edge rusher, 2019, Deshaun Hall.
Deshaun Hall, baby, he was our winner as well. You bet bottom dollar he won that
I could
award.
see like a Terrell Lewis or a Julian Aquaro winning it. One of those two. Those
was
are
like
two
Teron Jackson's last time in Philadelphia. He just
his
goes
last
crazy
stand
in the preseason, or a Patrick Johnson type of player. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think we got a lot of candidates that are.
There's a lot of them, and they're at every position.
In love with Eagles fans, man.
Like another guy that I liked a lot, Brandon Smith at linebacker. Dude's like,
oh, there you go.
Got a lot of power.
What about Gabe Hall, man? On the interior, people love Gabe Hall right now.
Oh, we're sickos. I can't wait for the fourth quarter.
Tonight is going to be so fun, man.
Bad I miss football, dude. I can't wait for the fourth quarter tonight to see these guys.
And I always got to say this. I believe I say it before every preseason game. These are guys going to compete for a job. Save your quirky tongue-in-cheek comments for another day.
Yeah, dogging on
us
the fourth team tight end's not really fun.
Yeah, you pick somebody your own size.
Like,
these guys are competing for jobs, and this is what we love to talk about, man. So don't be that person that kind of rains on their parade. It's a big opportunity in a big-time football game tonight, man, against Baltimore. Somebody who has a deep loaded roster. I think you're going to get a lot of opportunities to evaluate these guys. And for the first time, Lou, we don't have to live vicariously through beat reporters' tweets.
I know. I'm just glad. Show me Zach Ball. Yeah, I'm sick of hearing how good Zach Ball's been. I need to see with my own eyes to really believe he's the starting linebacker and all of that. So the game tonight, cannot wait for it. We got you covered right here on Locked On Eagles all week long after the game for recaps, breakdowns of the battles for the positional starters, depth spots, backups, you name it. We've got you covered right here on Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Enjoy the game tonight. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.